I will now introduce today's special guest. I'm very delighted to be joined today by Stuart Skinner, who's the Group Managing Director at the PHA Group. So as Managing Director, Stuart is responsible for the day-to-day operations of the PHA Group, which is a leading independent PR agency based in central London, serving a range of clients across corporate, consumer, and reputation practices. So Stuart has been with PHA for 14 of its 15 years and joined when the company was just 3 people, and it's now up to 85 and a top 15 independent. He has a wealth of experience planning and executing award-winning campaigns, working closely with leading figures in business to protect and enhance their personal reputations as pioneers in their sectors. So as I mentioned, Stuart's going to be talking about collaboration during COVID-19 and the challenges and opportunities that that's brought. So I'll hand over now to Stuart for 10 minutes and then we'll kick off a brief discussion afterwards with some questions. So with that in mind, Stuart, it's over to you.
Thanks, Corey, and good to join you all this afternoon. Can you all hear me, first of all? First things first. Yes, getting a thumbs up, thank you. I hope you're not too distracted by the unicorn over my shoulder. Anyways, we found in the last few months, you can be working from anywhere as long as you're working effectively. It doesn't really matter. And the PR world in that sense has become a smaller place. And I think that's been a really positive thing in many ways, because in turn, that's brought people together, agency leaders together, for more collaboration and more sharing of ideas and intelligence that perhaps would have happened otherwise. We, for our part, we're 85 people, as Corey mentioned, based in one office pre-pandemic in central London. But we've been working from 85 different locations from mid-March. And we just started to phase back into the office with the first cohort going back 2 weeks ago. So they started that process of reintegration into the office and home balance. But during the lockdown period, I can honestly say we've been more productive than ever before. And I know that's the case elsewhere. There's been a real sense of we're in this together, not only within agencies themselves like ours, but in the wider industry, nationally and internationally. Whether you're an agency, whether you're a consultant, whether you're a freelancer, you've obviously come up against similar challenges. And I think that's engendered a great deal of solidarity and collaboration, and with that, new opportunities to work together with your industry peers. So that's going to be my take on today's subject and my positive spin on it, which I think is definitely one of opportunity. I've probably had more conversations in the last 3 or 4 months with other industry leaders than I had in the previous 15 years, which has been fantastic and inspiring. And I think that is a microcosm of what's happening across the industry, across the world. But the question is why? What are the factors that are influencing that fresh approach and willingness to collaborate? I think one thing, it being totally frank, is obviously a good way of dealing with the unknown is to share your ignorance sometimes, particularly with people who are sympathetic and understand the challenges. And maybe they have more time to connect because they're on Zoom rather than in person. So diaries are easy to sort out. So logistically, of course, there are benefits. And actually talking through common challenges and different perspectives has been really, really helpful, not only as a sanity check for PHA's own approaches, but also to inspire plenty of new ideas and new collaborations. So yeah, I'm sure one motive for the increase in collaboration is an element of insecurity and self-preservation, looking for affirmation on your own tactics, looking for new ideas, keeping all doors to possible referred revenue open during this period, clearly important. Another motive, though, I think, is a heightened awareness of providing value across the board to clients at this moment. And one method of doing so would be to draw on complementary skills through partner agencies. I think another product of the pandemic has been for agencies to focus on what they're really good at and then find a partner to nail the rest of it. So we've had to think harder about how to prove value to clients and be more honest with ourselves about what in that remit we can execute really well and what elements we would do best to bring in an expert partner. And that I think that's a new, transparent, honest way of looking at briefs that perhaps wasn't done before, where we try and consume it all ourselves and do the best we could, sometimes on a wing and a prayer. Now there's more openness to collaboration, bringing in the experts. But I think the biggest factor in that fresh approach to collaboration is a reassessment of the way we're working in light of lockdown, which encourages more collaboration, more collegiate approaches from agencies, and less protectionism of budgets and ideas. So we're aware of the new opportunities for collaboration and some of the reasons behind that. But I think one of the big challenges is to come up with a strategy for partnerships at home and abroad internationally that actually works for you as an agency or as a practitioner. And of course, building networks and cultivating them is nothing new to anyone in PR. It's part of running a successful agency. But I think the strategy and the approach to working with partners has evolved recently in a number of ways. Particularly, I'll talk a little bit about how PHA's approach has become more targeted to working with partners, and how the criteria for membership of our partner network has changed a little bit over the last few months in a number of ways, mainly to match three things: sector trends, so where the business is flowing nationally and internationally, which sectors are burgeoning, and which partners can we work with to collaborate on projects for those sectors. Clearly, there's a new business aspect to that. Client demands, secondly, as I mentioned, our briefs, can we execute all of briefs, or should we bring in experts to dovetail with us and provide the best service? And thirdly, I think, and importantly, I think opportunities for developing our people internally in our agencies and our colleagues, getting them involved with partnerships, I think is a really good opportunity for career development. Getting to know the industry more broadly, bringing a different perspective back into your work. I think we've seen that has been a real opportunity to bring on senior staff and involve them in this network, so they're plugged into a broader network and awareness in the industry themselves. So our approach has been to target leading independent agencies in territories that are important to our clients and where we see new business growth opportunities. And obviously, being an independent, we're not restricted by a corporate structure or by any exclusive partnerships within that mix. We get to work with the best agencies in the fields geographically. And that's led us to a strong network of between about 12 and 15 agency partners internationally at the moment, most of whom we've exchanged business with or joined forces with on live clients. And alongside that, we're developing a freelancer network, which again is a new thing. So freelance consultant network in the same territories as the partner agency network, to provide a little bit of flex on price and terms of engagement. So give us that flexibility, latitude with clients to match their briefs if it's slightly shorter term or slightly more restricted budget that we've seen over the pandemic. And also to develop niche expertise in certain areas through cutting edge pioneering individuals who might be a little bit more advanced in their knowledge even than some agencies in the territories. So the freelance network attached to the agency network is providing real flexibility and real insight in the regions for us. And as a result of establishing that network, we've seen some trends emerge from that as well. Namely, over the last 4 or 5 months, communication with those partners has increased. Referrals have increased. And the number of people involved in terms of our agency in those relationships has increased as well. And with it, as I say, opportunities for personal development and industry knowledge has increased. So those trends are really, really positive across the board in terms of agency growth, business and collaboration. And the nature of those partnerships has also developed, and that's probably the key point that I'll finish with, in the sense that they are now genuine partnerships rather than just purely vehicles for a third business. Of course, that's important and that's brilliant and that's part of the relationship. But we've seen an evolution from that to all sorts of things, including joint training initiatives where partner agency staff are joining our training that we host internally, to staff exchange schemes where when we're allowed to, when it's safe, we'll continue to send people to offices abroad and they'll send people to us and we'll host them for a week or 2 weeks in our offices. And generally exchanging ideas around the common challenges we're facing in the industry and business growth ideas, looking at other people's companies from an external perspective. I think it's quite a powerful thing to do when we're often at management level just existing in an echo chamber of our own ideas. So being open to just exchanging business growth ideas with partner agencies at director level, I think is powerful as well. And we're now in a position where we're having all of those conversations virtually across the board with our partners, which is great. They're far more meaningful, and there's a exciting opportunity that's developed over lockdown to now develop that even further and bring the PR world even closer together. So in conclusion, I think we can be thankful for small mercies perhaps during a global pandemic. The trend for the PR world to become a little bit smaller and a little bit more open to collaboration is certainly one that I hope continues. And I'm optimistic to see what the next few months could bring in that sense. So just remains for me to say thank you for listening, and it'd be great to hear your views on that and any questions you may have.
Thank you. Thanks very much for that, Stuart. Some really interesting themes that you've brought up there. And I think the crux of it is very consistent with what we've seen, certainly over the past few months, in terms of the way industry organizations, agencies, competitors have come together and kind of seen the broader picture. And it's been quite remarkable, the spirit of collaboration within the industry. We've, shortly after the pandemic hit in March, we established the COVID-19 task force, which featured practitioners from all over the world, over 100 in total. And they came together and created learning opportunities fundamentally. And I think the point you made about sharing ignorance really resonated. I think that's such a key point. When people are facing a situation where they feel insecure, their natural tendency is to link up with other organizations in a similar position. And that's certainly what we've seen. Our audience may have a few questions, but I've just got a couple myself first. I think you mentioned that there is less protectionism now than there was been as a result of these changes. And that's fostered a spirit of collaboration. In your view, how likely is that to remain in place for the foreseeable future? Is it something that will fade away as and when we creep back to some form of normality, or do you see it lasting for the future of practice?
I think it's something that needed to happen anyway. I think it is something that really needed to happen anyway, and was perhaps expedited by the pandemic, because it is all about that value proposition for clients, isn't it? And now that the scrutiny on budgets and the focus on value and impact is obviously greater than ever, because it needs to be. And that's actually a positive thing for PR practitioners, because they get to really examine the navels and examine the value they can add themselves, and be honest about things that slightly peripheral to their core value proposition. And that's really come through in the pandemic, where we've received briefs where previously we might go for all of it and try and focus on what we can do well. Now we'll actually put more thought into an open-minded, broad-minded, collaborative proposition that includes maybe different moving parts, but the potential for impact is a little bit higher. So I think it's something that was overdue, to be honest, Corey, and I hope it continues. That's
interesting. So do you think that long term it's going to help make our profession or our industry a more strategically minded and practice, and one that operates at a far senior level than it does or than it had before?
I think so. And it was certainly what we're going to push from PHA's point of view. Is when you think about it logically, you get a classic brief through, you send it out to 6 agencies, you ask for a full response. It's pretty rare that the one of those agencies is going to be able to answer every aspect of a full-ranging brief in the best possible way, better than anyone else in the industry. It just ain't going to happen. It's not logical, and it doesn't make common sense. So what agencies should really be doing is saying, right, there's elements here we can do really well, but we're going to bring in partners. We're going to show our awareness of the industry more generally at home and abroad, and we're going to provide the best solution. Might have a few moving parts, but it's going to be of higher value, higher impact. And if agencies have had to slim down during the pandemic, that'll be another factor, won't it? They maybe had to lose some elements of the business, streamline and focus on what they do really well. They won't actually have the option to try and cover everything anyway, because resources don't allow that. So there's a number of different factors, I think, that will influence the trajectory. But now we've focus on that.
Thank you. And just, you touched on obviously the fact that you're an independent, a top 15 independent agency. how does that impact your ability to create these partnerships and to demonstrate and show that flexibility?
It does give us a bit more license than you would have if you're a big corporate, where you've got an office in Poland or in Belarus or wherever it is, and you obviously, the stock position is you go with our Polish office. It might just be two guys there who don't really have the market leading insights and the contacts that the client needs. But if you've got an office there, you're not going to recommend another competitor. No, we've got free license to work with the very best people in the territory. So we've done an awful lot of work with our sales and marketing team, combing through, researching the impact of people's work, their credentials, their approach, making sure it's a cultural match with PHA as well as a service match. And sometimes we've had to try a few before we found the right partner in a territory as well, by the way. So it's not an instant fit sometimes. But yeah, it gives us a real license to find the very best in any territory and make sure there's a collaborative partnership match for us as well, where we can do those other things easily with the company, whether it's training or exchanging staff or exchanging business ideas. It's not just a transactional relationship, it's one that will actually enhance our culture and our people's development as well as exchanging business. So I think it's a really, really exciting opportunity for any agency directors to enhance their skill set and development of their staff.
And what is it that you look for in those cultural matches? What are the traits that you're looking out for?
A commitment to the development of people is important, because obviously that's one of the aspects we want to play on in the partnership. So clear training schemes, development of people, high quality at all levels, and then some similarities with our approach as well is good. We have certain specialisms. We've got 8 main departments with specialisms from technology to corporate PR to healthcare. So if there's a match in terms of services, obviously that sets us in good stead as well. And then we do research in terms of how long the agency's been established, has been recognised by the industry in their countries, and look for some third-party endorsement. And then I always speak to the owners and make sure there is some sort of foundation for collaboration and an initial chemistry meeting with how they run the business and what their ethos is.
Thank you. Last one from me. You and I were speaking just now about offices and return to office. Could you just give us a quick overview of how the return to physical offices has been for PHA Group?
I think it's been great and refreshing to get back some sort of normality. But here's how we've done it. We phased a voluntary return starting 2 weeks ago, and we said to staff, and if you'd like to come in, we're going to open the office Tuesday to Friday for the next couple of months. Continue to gauge COVID, continue to gauge all of the measures we've put in place around that. We've put screens up, we've put disinfectant, we've increased the amount of cleaning, and we've made lots of provisions to ensure staff feel comfortable in the way that they're working. We've said to staff, you can start to come back in. Let us know if you're interested, and we've had about 35-40% of staff say they're interested in coming back in, and that's been great. I was one of the first back in the office a couple of weeks ago. It's been great to see people in person. I've now had quite a few clients say, actually, do you want to meet up? Do you want to discuss our campaign in person? Because I think they've been storing up that desire to see people in person for so long. There's going to be a bit of a flood of client meetings now. And that's why I think it's important to restore some sort of balance in the way we're working and not become too institutionalized by working from home. So it's been going really well. Been going for a couple of weeks now. We'll continue to assess the first phase, and then we're going to go into a secondary phase, which is we ask all staff to return to the office, but at the same time we give them a much enhanced work from home allowance. So effectively, if you wished, you could balance your time 50-50 from home and from the office, and that'll be the next phase. And
is it your view that you need people in the office in terms of boosting product creativity, possibly productivity as well? I mean, you mentioned already that these past few months have been your most productive, and presumably that's been done remotely. So how does that sit with where the organisation's performance?
Yeah, the productivity has been amazing during lockdown, and that's credit to the staff, really, the way that they've rolled their sleeves up and shown that they can work with us. I don't question the productivity. I don't think that would drop off or particularly be enhanced by returning to the office. I think there are other factors. But we've actually got into a nice position now where we're able to start recruiting again, and we're looking at some junior staff joining us now. If you've got a junior member of staff joining the company of 85 fresh, then I think it's right and proper that people are there to welcome them, train them, show them the ropes, and some of the teammates there to meet them. I think there's huge benefit in integrating a new member of staff in person rather than via Zoom, and that's a tricky scenario otherwise. And I think that's point one. And I think point two, clients are now starting to ask us, and obviously we're all at the behest of clients. Without clients, we're nothing. So if clients want to see us in person, I think that's a positive opportunity for us to build on that relationship. Most of the relationships are solid and they've been existing for many months before the pandemic, but others are fresh, others are brand new. We're winning business now, touch wood, in the last couple of months quite nicely. So in order to instill and create a relationship with a new client, I think that's really important. We see them in person where possible. Of course, I accept that there is still anxiety and nervousness around public transport in particular, and the virus is fluctuating, but I think the pros definitely outweigh the cons in terms of a balanced and a phased return, particularly for integrating new staff, building that camaraderie again in person, and then onboarding new clients and refreshing existing relationships.
Yeah, I think those are all really great points, particularly for junior staff, and you're absolutely right. I think that experience for new people coming into our industry and learning on the job is invaluable. Are there any questions from any of our audience who perhaps might like to turn their camera on and ask Stuart a question?
Hi, yes, Stuart, I'm from India. I'm Jaitika. I run my own PR company. You mentioned about the coexistence of the partnership network and also the freelance network. Now, hypothetically, when it comes to bringing a new client on board, don't you think if the two scenarios coexist, there is going to be a constant battle of credibility?
I think, thanks for your question, by the way. It's a really interesting question. I don't think so, actually. I think I'll give you an example. We've got a client in the UK who asked us to expand our brief and take in US representation. So a big opportunity for us to upsell and build a relationship with the client. Unfortunately, where they're in a niche in the marketing sector, and they don't have a massive amount of budget. So those two factors really led us towards a freelance model rather than an agency model. Obviously, the agency prices in the US are generally even more than the UK, so price would have been preclusive. We actually found a freelance partner who's got a fantastic knowledge of this sector, can work in a flexible way, hourly rates, weekly rates, rather than committing the client to a monthly retainer model, for example. And she, in this case, she operates as part of our account team. So she's happy to slot into that kind of structure. So actually that works on every level for the client in a commercial sense, and for us in a structural sense, because there's someone who's now coming in as part of our team and working in harmony with us, but adding a real layer of local knowledge and sector expertise. So that's been a massive win for us. And it's been a development over the last couple of months where, perhaps in response to that, and in response to another brief where there was a lot of territories to cover and limited budget, the freelance network alongside the agency network, I think, is a powerful option.
Thank you, Stuart, and thank you for the question, Jaitika, as well. Any other questions before we wrap up? No? Okay, Stuart, all that's left for me to do is say a big thank you for that. That was really, really insightful, and appreciate you taking time out of your day to join us.